Welcome to Red, White, and Blue. From the right, I'm Gary Polland.
And from the left, I'm David Jones.
Tonight we welcome two guests. First, City Council member CO Brad Bradford, who served 24 years as a Houston police officer and the last 7 as chief of police. He was appointed Houston's police chief by Mayor Bob Lanier and reappointed by Mayor Lee Brown. And Katherine Cabaniss, who's executive director of Crime Stoppers and a former assistant district attorney. Welcome to you both.
Thank you.
And Katherine, are we winning the battle of crime with Crime Stoppers as an organization right out there in front, doing what exactly?
You know, Crime Stoppers is certainly helping with that. That's what we are here to do. Crime Stoppers is a resource that fights crime here in our community. We're the only nonprofit organization that's organized to do that. And we do it by maintaining that tip line that everybody is familiar with, 713-222-TIPS. You hear it every night on the news. We have great name recognition, but not many people realize that what it is an anonymous tip line where we take crime reports. We use those reports to help fight and decrease crime in our community, and we pay cash rewards to those tipsters who give us information that turns out to be good.
What is that number again?
That's right, there's money to be made.
Hey, listen, what kind of a... give us your general observation of this crime problem that Houston has. What are the characteristics of it that your organization sees?
Sure. What we recognize is that there are so many people who are afraid to get involved. They're afraid of reporting crime to the police or telling what they know. They're afraid of retaliation from the people who are committing the crimes, or maybe afraid of being known as the person in the neighborhood who told. So that's why Crime Stoppers is such an important resource, because we need to use the citizen base. We need that partnership with citizens to be able to fight crime in the community that we're in today.
So when Crime Stoppers gets information from an anonymous tipster, where does that information go?
That information comes into Crime Stoppers. We give that tipster a code number. We then give that information to the investigating agency, whether it's the Houston Police Department, the Sheriff's Department, whoever it is. They investigate. If their information leads to the arrest or filing of felony charges, then we pay that tipster through their code number a cash reward. So it really is, by law, an anonymous system that works very effectively.
Interesting. Do you have to pay taxes on that money?
They should.
There are a number of criminals in jail today because of Crime Stoppers. It is an excellent vehicle to utilize in today's environment, in today's context. With all of the issues surrounding immigrants and what are we going to do with immigration as a whole, I have a serious concern that there are witnesses, there are victims out there who may not come forward and report criminal activity to the police. But Crime Stoppers is another tool that they can utilize, even in an anonymous fashion, to help us solve crimes and get information we need in the city of Houston.
And you're not going to get, if you're here illegally, you're not going to get picked up because you gave a tip to Crime Stoppers.
They can give that information anonymously and know that there's no worry about that.
And then spend the money in the Houston economy.
Absolutely. Another reason to support Crime Stoppers.
My first question for you, Chief Bradford, or Councilman Bradford, is you're on two sides of, I guess, the equation of the police effort in Houston. You were a longtime police officer, and then you became police chief, and now you're one of the bosses for the police department from the political side as a city councilman. So how do you look at the police department in the new chair you're sitting in as opposed to the old one?
I tell you, I haven't forgotten the welts on my back from the police chief days. No doubt about that. It's a very different position in that you are looking at policies which govern the police department and policies which regulates activity in the city of Houston. It is different. It is a broader perspective, and it brings experience and expertise to the table. I think that is seriously needed in today's environment. The police department's budget has been reduced, but I think not reduced to the extent that will impact safety service delivery. Just efficiencies tighten the belt given today's economy.
Do we have a strategy in Houston of policing? I remember Mayor Brown, when he was chief, actually said something about, there was a community-oriented policing is what you heard about. New York, for instance, has something called ComStat, where it's highly digitalized, and they focus their resources based on certain, predictive data, they say. Do we have a strategy?
Sure. ComStat is one tool in the basket that public safety agencies are utilizing across America, acknowledging that public safety is a community responsibility. Law enforcement agencies, one, must work together. We must do even more than we are doing today to get the Houston Police Department, the Harris County Sheriff's Department, the constables, the school district police, and all the other agencies with law enforcement authority in the area working together with businesses and citizens to collectively identify what are these problems and collectively organize and deploy resources to solve the problems, whether it's gang activity, domestic violence. Many of the things that are the impetus of crime are not within the control of the police officers in the area.
You have agencies that participate with you. What about those agencies and the consolidation issues that the former chief is raising?
Well, that's exactly right. That's exactly the Crime Stoppers resource, is to bring all of those partnerships together and together with the citizens, to give the citizens a way to make those crime reports. What we recognize is that, or at least through Crime Stoppers, what we see is that there are so many crimes now that are committed in broad daylight. The criminals are committing, criminal activity knowing that there are surveillance cameras watching, knowing that there are people around. It's no longer just in the dark alley that someone is ambushed and maybe their wallet is stolen. These are bank robberies in broad daylight in the front of cameras that are crowded full of people. So we need help from the citizen base to tell us who these criminals are. We give that information to law enforcement, and they are able to go out and much more effectively and efficiently make those arrests. That's why the partnership is so significant.
I was going to ask you about law enforcement. One of the things I'm concerned about is the myriad of police agencies we have in Harris County and the duplication that you would have of command staff, dispatch, and the like. And you're a former longtime prosecutor that prosecuted serious felonies while you were there. Do you think it would be better for our community that we would find a way to start consolidating this vast number of police departments?
I don't know about better, but I know that there are more than 70 law enforcement agencies in Harris County. It's amazing. Just like the council member said, there's one for every ISD, one for every village, one for every city, certainly the county. We serve all of those, and I think that is part of the efficiency of our process, is to be able to take the information and get it to whichever agency it is without the multiple agencies having to figure out which agency that information goes to.
Chief, she just said that crime was more violent and more bold. Now, maybe she's also going to say that the statistics are flat, but she's saying something else here. Is Houston a more dangerous place than ever? If you accept that characterization, and if so, what are the strategies to deal with that type of criminality?
Well, in response to what Katherine has said, I would say true. Our society is experiencing more violence today. When you look at some of the issues that officers are confronting today, the suspects tend to be more violent, the best characteristic of what's happening across America. And I think that crime in general is trending down in Houston now, as it is across America in most other large cities, and there are a number of things that are contributing to that. But a large part of it has to do with the fact that people understand that there will be consequences. We understand the need to have rehabilitation strategies in place, prevention strategies in place, education awareness, but I believe we have to have a certain and definite punishment in place as well.
Here's what happened in New York, Gary. I mean, you're a visitor of that city from time to time. Comstat and the statistics coming out of that strategy showed that in 1 year alone there were almost 600,000 people stopped and frisked with less than 1% even arrested. That's 500 and some odd thousand citizens, most of them African Americans, who were targeted and where nothing happened to them other than they had to submit to police authority. Do we engage in such practices in Houston in the African American community?
I think, one, we go back and acknowledge that police stops are based not on population or demographics. It tends to be based on crime trends, crime patterns, and things of that nature. If you were to go farther, you would ask questions of the violent crimes committed in New York City. What percentage of those crimes were completed by the same group of population which you cited, the blacks, versus other populations there? You see that the percentage of criminal activity being committed by blacks in New York City is way disproportionate to the general population there. So therefore, we deploy police services, strategies, and activities where there's crime and criminal activity as reported by crime victims, as well as supported by the evidence and data.
But that would support, it seems to me, a stop based on driving while black. We don't have people walking around as they do in New York. But we have the complaint here many times made that officers here just stop people because they see a black man behind the car in the wrong neighborhood.
Well, certainly it is expressly prohibited via law here in the state of Texas. And when the allegation is made, there ought to be an investigation, and the investigation should run its course. It's very difficult to prove that an officer stops someone based on race, because I know, having been a field officer, if you want to stop a person, particularly a motorist, all you have to do is make an observation for a period of time, and you're going to have an opportunity.
He's about to make himself an expert witness in every motion to suppress
a legitimate stop.
David, I want to ask Katherine, you've been with Crime Stoppers for a number of years. Have you noticed any interesting trends that our viewers would find interesting in terms of what Crime Stoppers have been dealing with,
sure.
or observations?
Absolutely, and I'll just use that also to clarify that certainly Crime Stoppers is not saying that the crime rate is up, because it is not necessarily that the crime rates are up. I think it's correct that they're actually decreasing. I think that what's different and what the trend is that we're observing is that the crimes are being committed differently. They're being committed in broad daylight. We're also well aware, as everyone is, that property crimes are on the increase, that burglaries of a motor vehicle are something that people experience problems with all the time. So we have tried to tailor our initiatives and our campaigns to really impact some of these crimes that people are experiencing every single day, in addition to the more violent and dangerous crimes that are being committed in our communities that put us all at risk. We're doing all of those things and having some great success at it.
Let me add to, statistics are one thing. You can simply have the crime numbers very, very low. But if the citizens' fear of crime and public safety concerns are high, we still have a problem. We have to deploy fear reduction strategies. And in today's world of state-of-the-art technology, crime and information concerning criminal activity is proliferated so rapidly, and so often something happens on the other side of town in another city, and people become fearful that it poses a threat to them simply because it's portrayed to them via internet.
All right, how about some politically incorrect questions? Is the crime problem that we have related to the significant number of illegal aliens that are in the Houston area?
I have not seen crime data that supports the fact that one commits a crime based on where he or she was born. I haven't seen the nexus there yet. People commit criminal activity, in my view, with a conscious disregard for the law, and they need to be sanctioned for that. I just don't see the nexus between where you were born and your commission of a crime.
And certainly, if we're going to talk about the different strategies that we can use to fight that, there are many different ways, and I think that the current local leadership is really going at it in several different ways to try to reduce the crime, using Crime Stoppers as one way. But also, we don't have CompStat here, but we have a real-time crime center, crime information center, that HPD uses to obtain all of those statistics and try to analyze trends and see where to deploy their resources. So I think that there are efforts to use as many different strategies as possible to come at this problem, both the private nonprofit industry as well as other resources that are used around the country, maybe not the same resources in New York, but also some strategies that are very similar that are able to fight the crime problem here.
And many of us, we've seen CompStat for a number of years now, including the current chief here, Chief McClellan. He's gone to New York or Chicago, L.A., and looked at those technology strategies, including CompStat, and brought back the best practices from those models and implemented the real-time crime center here in Houston.
Yeah, well, Gary, I think that the last sensitive subject that I had is this. Katherine says it's a tough world out there, and cops are right on the front line, and you know what that means to be there. I'm asking, because of this sort of excessiveness in the criminality, whether or not our officers are trained to deal with it in any special way, especially given that we've just seen several of them indicted and thrown out of the job for beating a suspect. And I'm reading the report here where he was laying flat on his back, had 15 blows to the back of the head, one after he was handcuffed, and several others taking him on as well. Is that an appropriate reaction because of the seriousness of the excessiveness of criminal activity?
To answer that question, no, it's not an appropriate response.
Why does it happen?
Training is an ongoing process, and it happens in large part, in my view, because, as we said earlier, the general population has become more violent, there's a less regard for authority, for respect, for rules in the general population. Well, we still recruit police officers from the general population. Now, we screen as best as we can, but unfortunately, from time to time, some are going to get through that shouldn't get through. And then others, once they are on board, they make a decision to do the wrong thing. We have to discipline those, sanction those, prosecute those, remove them from service when we identify who they are.
And I also want to be sure that we make the point that, when these incidents happen, when an incident like that happens, that certainly does not color the entire police department with that sort of activity. There are thousands of police officers in the more than 70 law enforcement agencies in our county that are doing a great job. They are running toward the danger when we're all running from it.
So we don't read about all the officers doing their job appropriately every day. Right. We read about the handful that have problems.
That's exactly right, and we want to make sure that we recognize that does not indicate that there are that does not paint that brush on every single one of those officers.
Councilman Bradford, one of the issues you're going to be dealing with on City Council is, of course, public employee pensions. I've been reading about that all over the country, where the pension systems are going broke. There's not enough money to pay for them. That all the money's going to have to go to pensions. You want to have to be able to have current employees. And I understand that, of course, we have separated pension systems for our police and fire departments, and they're very important recruiting tools in terms of you getting the kind of quality people the city wants working in those tough jobs. So, where are we going with this, and what is it going to mean long term to the citizens of our community?
Well, currently the city sustains 3 separate independent pension systems, one for police, one for fire, and one for other municipal employees. I think it's fair to say that we're at a point where we must put a plan in place to maybe eliminate or reduce that 3-system program. I don't think we can sustain that, but I'm not talking about today or tomorrow. There needs to be a plan put in place, whether it's 10, 15, 20 years out, where we can transition maybe from the 3 plans we have now. I think it's understood that something must be done. We can no longer sustain the 3 independent systems as we have today. Having said that, there are many people in the public service sector knowing that they're not going to get rich doing the activity. But at the end, there are benefits and there are perks that they can stay there 25, 30 years plus and maybe get those. Well, if those benefits are constantly dwindling as they are today, then I think we'd have to require additional benefits, higher salaries on the front end.
We had the mayor on recently, and she made 2 observations I'd like to get your response to. One, she said basically that she agrees that we may be wasting, you can consult the record on this, we may be wasting a little bit too much time on processing, booking folks charged with possessing 6 grams of marijuana when they could be on the street fighting the more serious crimes that you have. And secondly, she said that this was her last budget for a crime lab, and in light of your disagreement with her over the payment of the consultant on the print audit, maybe you can tell us where you stand as far as those 2 observations that we heard her make. Either one of you.
I'm certainly in concurrence with the mayor that something must be done. We learned almost 10 years ago now that we had serious problems with our forensic activities in the Houston Police Department. We've made some modest changes, and there are strategies underway still to do something about it, but that doesn't help the people who are still getting caught up in the system every day. We have to do things more aggressively, and I think if you put a kind of drop deadline in place, we're not going to fund the ongoing activity in the way that it's being funded today any longer. It kind of forces those of us in policy-making positions to do something that should have been done, in my view, some time ago.
How about this fighting the drug war the way that we have for the last 15 years? Is it working? Or should we take the mayor's advice and maybe put some of those marijuana kids in the city system?
I wasn't here, so I don't know what the mayor said. But what I can say is that, certainly those charging decisions are made by the police officers that make the arrests and by the prosecutors that end up filing the charges ultimately. And so whether they choose to charge Class C or Class A or whatever it is, the law on the books says that possessions of small amounts of marijuana are against the law, a Class B or a Class A misdemeanor depending. So I think that it just depends on who's making those charging decisions.
Well, of course, Gary's friend, the DA, has effectively decriminalized trace amounts of cocaine. Okay, so somebody is not exactly...
The law is still on the books. It's the charging decision.
Sure, but this is the issue. This is a justice issue as well as a fiscal issue. At some point, we're going to have to acknowledge that we can no longer continue locking as many people up as we are locking up, okay? If you decide to issue a citation for the less than 4 ounces of marijuana, the defendant subjects, he subject to the same charge, subject to the same sanction. You just save all of the time of the officer having to book that person as well as time with incarceration. So I submit that we should, in fact, do a good field check of that person, screen the person in the field. If we can determine accurately who they are, we should be issuing citations as opposed to bringing everyone down, charging them, putting them through the process. It saves police officers' time, it's efficiency in the system as well.
Lawyers don't get paid, Gary, if that happens.
Well, that's the way it goes. The system's got to get more efficient. I wanted to ask you both. You both have a long time experience in the criminal justice system. I want you to look in your crystal ball and tell me one or two things you expect is will surprise us in the next 10 years that'll happen in the criminal justice system.
I don't know about the next 10 years, but I think something that's happened recently that's going to inspire some litigation or some lawsuits is the Supreme Court's decision about the guns, gun control, and what are states allowed to do and what are they not allowed to do with regard to regulation. I think that their decision that says that states can't impact the possession of a firearm will then instigate a lot of lawsuits about what does that mean, how far can they go, what regulations can they provide for the ownership or the possession of firearms. So I think we'll be seeing that probably in the nearer rather than the farther future. Certainly I hope that in the next 10 years that community resources like Crime Stoppers and citizen empowerment and partnership will be the way of fighting crime in the future. I think it is the way to go with budget and manpower issues. I think that fighting crime with citizens' help is the way to go.
I think Crime Stoppers should be training everybody who has a firearm. That's that's your future.
My crystal ball issue?
Yeah.
Technology. I think technology will continue to impact drastically how safety services are delivered, and I think we will get into the judicial arena as to how that technology is stored, the far reaching of that technology, et cetera. I think that's going to be a big issue down the road.
And of course, Gary asked about illegal immigrants a while ago. Is it an appropriate thing for the state of Texas, who I know, friends of Gary's are going to be offering legislation to bring Arizona to Texas? Is this good police thinking to have as Arizona type of law in the state of Texas?
Well, here's my take on that. This is a Texas state legislature issue that needs to be healthy, open, broad discussion and debate in the Texas state legislature and decide what's best for Texans. And then those of us in Houston, San Antonio, Dallas, et cetera, need to yield to that.
Well, and the other thing I guess that I would point out is that we could wait. We could actually let Arizona be one of the labs of democracy. They're going to try this. We'll see how we should be able to sit back and see how it works. And if it's successful, that people's civil liberties are not significantly impacted, that Americans are not being harassed because they happen to be Hispanic, or it could be anything, because anyone can be illegal. You can be from anywhere in the world. Then we'll see. And then if it works in Arizona in terms of getting rid of illegals,
if he's saying suspend the Constitution and let Arizona do whatever. But Catherine, does that not interfere with crime?
That's David Spin.
Does that not interfere with crime reporting that you depend on?
Well, I think that we certainly want people to report crime, and we certainly want there to be a resource that if they're afraid to report for any reason, whatever it is, that there is a resource for them, and that's what we try to provide. That's what we're doing here in Houston. We're doing it better than anywhere else in the country. Our partnership is more successful and more productive than any other, so maybe Arizona should take some notes from us. Maybe we need to be doing that.
So the City Council has you, and it has a criminal defense lawyer, Yolanda Jones. And you partnered up the other day in a vote or two. I mean, should we not count on some serious examination of criminal justice issues with this partnership?
Well, I think that City Council is not the place to deal with or examine criminal justice issues. There are other forums better suited to deal with that. But when it comes to policy issues which impacts how safety services are delivered in the city of Houston, I think it's good to have people from different perspectives discuss the issue, point, counterpoint, reason in the highest level of knowledge. You come to a better informed decision with that on the table.
Do we need a central booking facility for Houston, Harris County, and I guess all the other 70 law enforcement agencies?
Such as what the sheriff was proposing, right?
Anytime we can consolidate strategies, whether it's communications, whether it's booking, whether it's field operation tactics, I think we need to do that, because whether it is county, city, or otherwise, the same taxpayers getting drained. I pay too many taxes. There are too many fees, taxes, and permitting requirements in place now. So if, in fact, a combined booking center is going to bring relief to the taxpayers and bring about efficiency in the system, I support that. Now, however, I still need to see that we are going to do some things to reduce the number of people that we are incarcerating. See, to bring about a new booking center and still have 11,000 people incarcerated in the Harris County system, I don't think gets us where we need to get to.
And we have a detention budget, Catherine, as you know, that just eats up the entire sheriff's department. So if we want crime fighters from the sheriff's department, we're going to have to reduce his detention obligations.
Well, I don't know about that percentage of his budget, but I know that there are a lot of people down there. Improving the efficiencies is always a good thing. And I think that there are a lot of strategies right now going on in the Sheriff's Department to try to do that. I know that there are many different options that they're exploring and many different policies that they've already put in place in an effort to try to combat some of those problems. So I think they're working on it.
Well, I think this was a vigorous discussion. I wish we had more time to, and we will get you guys back. I think.
Yeah, we want more crystal ball.
That's right. Thank you, Catherine. Thanks, Brad. Come back soon. And you can view a follow-up discussion of tonight's show by visiting us at HoustonPBS.org. Look for red, white, and blue at that site. So check that out. And until next time, get informed and get active.